Yo, what's going on, everybody? Abdullah Konte here again with another episode. Been watching the Combine all day today, which has been really enjoyable. It's sad. I mean, look, I said it on Twitter. I'm a little bit of a football junkie. There's plenty of other sports going on, but to be honest, I don't care about any of them. I'm watching some football Combine, nerding out, and basically watching some of these guys' stocks rise and drop and seeing their athleticism and it's been great. Obviously, the off season is really a dead time. Like, we're going to be waiting a long time before we can get some football going again. But everybody, I think people have been looking forward to the combine and the draft in the off season probably since like week 10 of this season, of last year's season, considering how bad the season went for Commanders fans. So we're all excited to see what they can do to enhance this team. And there's a lot of things that we saw today that was, exciting, entertaining, or things to just, kind of get excited about what's to come in the new year. But before I get into that, and I want to talk about some of the guys' performance and just things that have been being said lately. And before I get into that, the first thing was there was a surprise release today. Tyler Biadasz got released, the center for the Commanders for the past, I believe, 2 seasons. I don't know actually how old he is. I don't think he's super old, but it was a little bit surprising to me. I will say that, like, it seemed like a lot of people, it's been like hit or miss. He's 30 years old. Half of the fan base seems to be upset about it. I think there's more fan base. It's probably even more than half that seem to be happy with the move, or at least they felt like they needed a change at center. He wasn't getting it done. I know that he got an injury last year, so there is talk about, is his knee the same? My biggest thing was wanting to figure out what type of cut it was. You have the pre-June 1st or the post-June 1st designation cut. Talking to Josh Taylor, he says that I don't think you can cut somebody with the post-June designation, post June 1st designation, without it being the new year. So that means they're probably going to lose about $8 million of dead money on this, which is surprising to me, because if he was a post June cut, they would have been able to save $8 million. It seems like they'll only be able to save about a little under 3 and 2.8 million by cutting him. So, in my opinion, I ideally would like to believe it's maybe a injury reason, and I don't know if this applies when it comes to injury settlement and how that works overall, but essentially, there's going to be a change, and they're very much about getting players that can really enhance their run game. So maybe they don't feel like he's a strong fit for a player that's going to be a run game specialist. Now, who is going to replace him? I mean, I know Allegretti was his backup, but I know a lot of people are talking about Tyler Lindenbaum. I don't see him leaving Baltimore, and if he does, I think the Giants would be more likely of a destination for him because of Harbaugh being there now. But I just, I'm not sure what the answer is if this is something that they're going to be looking for in the draft. But there's going to be a change. So for me, it's a little bit concerning. Not to say that like they don't know what they're doing or anything. Obviously, they know much more than I would. It's more concerning because I thought the O-line played pretty well last year. So maybe there's something that they believe can be corrected here, and we just hope Tyler Biadasz the best. I like Tyler Biadasz, so I'm not, I wasn't one of those people who, when I saw the news, I was actually a little bit surprised. But I will say, when it comes to my analysis on positions, O-line is my weakest one. It's just the hardest one for me. I'm still trying to get better at that. So hopefully this O-line group will be even better in 2026. So let's talk about the players that had played really well performed really well at the combine. Like, there's been a lot of discussions, a lot about different players, and the Commanders being at 7 is one where, there's a lot of people who are bitter about it because they won that last game against Philly. And to be honest, I didn't understand why they were going for the win, but, I understand that they don't want to quit. But there is an element of like, hey man, chalk it up this season, punt on the season, and try to get better next year. And it was weird because the teams, Philly wanted to win but didn't win, and the Commanders fans, I know, didn't want to win and ended up winning. So it was just, everybody was annoyed. I left that stadium, everybody left that stadium being like, what was that, right? So but either way, the concern is that they wouldn't be the proper talent at 7. People are worried that like, hey, they might miss out. We heard Daniel Jeremiah speaking with JP Finley yesterday, and he was basically saying, hey, even though he had mocked Arvell Reese to the Commanders in his last mock, he's like, look, more and more he's hearing and being around there, it's looking like there might be none of those edges available. Like, Arvell Reese, Ruben Bain, and David Bailey might all be gone. And to be honest, the way they performed today, you could say that, right? I mean, we saw Arvell Reese ran a 4.47. We saw that David Bailey looked incredible. He ran a 4.5, 4.51, I believe. And then even Ruben Bain, the knock was that his arms was small. We all knew that was going to be a thing, but he's been impressive. Like, these guys have been impressive when it comes to how they're speaking to these teams, like, exuding that level of confidence. But, at the end of the day, they're not the only guys that are going to be available, right? I mean, there is people like Caleb Downs that we heard speak from yesterday. We do know that there has been a lot of talk about Jeremiah Love, and I'll get into that a little bit later. And then the last thing is, man, the guy who stole the show today was Sonny Styles. I mean, Sonny Styles was incredible. They showed his numbers and how they were comparable to Megatron, Calvin Johnson. And, like, granted, he doesn't move exactly the same as Calvin Johnson, but, man, he's a freak of an athlete. They were showing his highlights in basketball earlier today on Twitter, and, I mean, he's just a freak. And it basically shows that, like, look, there are some other guys that maybe are falling through the cracks a little bit, or that their stocks are rising, that will be there at 7. Somebody has to be there at 7. We know Mendoza's going to be going number 1. That means there's only 5 other players that can go in front of the Commanders there. And so you can name 5 players right now that are worthy of getting selected there. I mean, you have Bain, Bailey, Downs, Reese, and Sonny Styles. There's also Mansour Delane, and then Jeremiah Love. So they're going to get a guy. You know what I mean? Like, they for me, I would say anybody but Falk. No Kendrick Falk, please. But they're going to get a guy. And don't disrespect Kendrick Falk. He's just not my cup of tea when it comes to this style of play. But that being said, there's going to be an available player here. Somebody's going to be there for them to grab, and it's just going to be interesting on what they do in free agency. It's crazy because I'm watching the draft, watching the combine, and all this is doing is just getting my attention or my energy even more excited for free agency, because free agency comes first, and with that, we'll get more of an idea what their strategy might be like in the draft, because they have to be extremely strategic in the draft this year with the fact that they do not have a second pick or a second round pick or a 4th round pick. So what that they do in the beginning of the draft will be indicative of what they're going to do, in free agency will be an indicative of what they're going to do at the beginning of this draft. So, but there are some players here. Now, there was a shakeup trade earlier today as well, with the Jermaine Johnson going from New York Jets to Tennessee for Devondre Sweat. And I think that's just a good, we kind of knew that Jermaine Johnson was going to leave. They tried to trade him last year before the trade deadline. They don't seem to want to re-sign him to a longer deal. And him going back to Saleh is big because everybody was convinced that Tennessee was going to go edge, and everybody was convinced that New York Jets were going to go with Reese at 2. But now that kind of opens the door to maybe switch some things up, where maybe David Bailey goes at 2. Maybe Ruben Bain goes at 2. Maybe Reese goes at 4 to Tennessee. Might not really affect the Commanders much at all, but it could. You know what I mean? Because they are switching up their rosters a little bit, making those moves, possibly to position themselves in a different way for when the off season starts or when the draft starts overall. So quick things to talk about. And then the last thing for me that I wanted to discuss overall was just this Jeremiah Love hype, right? Like, I do think that it's not necessarily that I feel like people should pump the brakes, because I do think he's a legit option, and I think he's top 5 player in this draft. I would be ecstatic if they were to grab him. I would only like it if they were able to grab other people in free agency to cover up the tracks. Just look, the defense is bad. It was the worst defense in the league last year. That could be because of scheme, but at the same time, there is a lack of talent. There's an older amount of players on that side of the ball that they need to rectify. So essentially, there's more people who want them to go defense with that first pick. But a guy like Jeremiah Love could really change this team completely on offense. See how much, the running backs who have switched to these teams, how much they've impacted those teams. When you talk about Bijan, when you talk about, Jahmyr Gibbs, when you talk about Saquon, he can be one of those guys. He's that good. Go watch his highlights, man. Even just watch the film. Watch the film. That's always what I say. Like, forget the numbers, watch the film, and you'll see a guy that can do a lot. He can do it all. I fell in love with him when I started watching his film because I wasn't even a big believer in him early on in the year when people kept talking about Jeremiah Love. I'm like, oh yeah, he looks all right. When I went and really dissected what he could do, that's when I was like, yeah, man, like I'm sold. I'm sold on that player. So, could they really pull the trigger? I think they know that they want to get Jaden some help, and I know a lot of people are thinking about getting some offensive receiver help. I look at it as like, you improve that running game, which is what they're trying to do with the Blau offense. You improve that running game and everything changes. Also, how much love has Blau got during the combine? So many of these coaches have been raving about him. So it's a lot of excitement going through for this Commanders team, but essentially, I just kind of wanted to talk about the news of like what I'd seen from today. Another thing to watch is Ayuk going to get cut? Because if Ayuk gets cut, it really does look like there's a lot of smoke going into the fact that Ayuk will probably be over here. I'm so curious of what his AAV will be. But at the same time, it's a lot of excitement. With everything that's going on, just watching drills. Like I said, I'm a football junkie. Just watching these drills, watching these guys get after it has got me so excited about what's going to happen in the offseason, not just for this team, but for all teams. How are these teams going to improve themselves? And specifically being here in DC, how are the Commanders going to really change up what they're doing? Look, a guy like Sonny Styles could really change it up for them. A guy like Alvaro Reese, I think, really actually is like the perfect player for them based off the Durante Jones defense. But even Caleb Downs, I'm excited to see him tomorrow because you guys know, like, out of everybody in this draft, he's probably my favorite player. Do I think he should go in that first, at number 7? I'd be fine with them taking him there. I know there's some people who don't think that he should be a top 10 pick because of the positional value. We're doing too much with this positional value thing. The same thing happened with Kyle Hamilton. He was supposed to be a top 5 pick, dropped all the way to 14. The Commanders even missed on him, and I was annoyed about that. And how many people would love a Kyle Hamilton on their squad right now? So, look, that's just my opinion. It was fun to see, man. This is the best thing about this is like just a lot of fun, man. It's just, it's off season when everybody is excited to see what their team can do. No bad record. Everybody's 0-0 record. So I'm excited to see what's going to happen in the future. But just wanted to say thank you guys for watching, taking your time to tune in. Please like, subscribe, and I'll talk to you guys soon.